It's November 11th, 2022. Hi, I'm Jack Cush. This is the Room Now podcast. We're on the eve of ACR 2022, ACR Convergence here in Philadelphia. And we're going to go over a few items from this past week in the news and then preview some of the exciting things that'll be happening in the next few days as Room Now covers ACR 22. Let me begin with a study of cannabis use that actually was more prevalent during the pandemic. Can you imagine that? This is actually a study of 78,000 individuals, and they looked at jurisdictions where cannabis was legal and where it wasn't legal. So there will be illegal, and so there's legal recreational, legal medicinal. I don't want to get into that, but in places where cannabis is legal in the United States, the use of it grew significantly during the pandemic compared to pre-pandemic levels. Interestingly, in non-legal states where it's illegal, it remained the same. So wider availability, it looked like marijuana and THC products were getting sort of the same uptake as was alcohol. All those people staying home with not much to do, as you know, alcohol sales also went up during the pandemic. Not sure what that really means, but again, I'm sort of always interested in the cannabis literature because it's so prevalent and widespread, yet there's little known about its true utility and efficacy, but everybody wants it. So give everybody what they want. I guess that's the way of the world these days. A study of almost 46,000 respondents over a 20-year period shows that chronic pain has actually increased in that 20-year period, and they looked at prescription use, and not surprisingly, non-pharmacologic analgesic meds was much higher than the use of opioids for chronic pain, but not for surgical pain and not for cancer pain. The point of this, of course, is that it looks like government policies and public health measures to reduce the reliance on opioids seems to have had some effect, and congratulations to all of you who have heeded those warnings. NHANES, as you know, is an ongoing survey of health habits in the United States. This particular survey looked at sleep habits amongst U.S. adults over the age of 20. They looked at almost 9,000 individuals, and they found that, what do you think is the average sleep time in the United States? What would be a good amount of hours if you were to get in the right amount of sleep? Well, from this study, it was 7.6 hours on work days and 8.2 hours on your free days or the weekends, I would assume. About a quarter slept less than 7 hours, and about a quarter went to bed at midnight or later, shame on you, and 30% said that they had trouble sleeping. I often quoted that 40% of the population has sleep disorders, and I think that this data is probably closer to the truth. 30% with trouble sleeping, with 27% having daytime sleepiness. Sleep is a major problem in rheumatology. If you're a rheumatologist treating musculoskeletal pain and you don't pay attention to sleep, you totally missed the boat. You're misdiagnosing all kinds of things. Sleep is responsible for chronic pain, chronic fatigue, strange numbness, migraine headaches, irritable bowel syndrome. I mean, it's a myriad of things that are all rooted in poor sleep. And it doesn't have to be, sleep apnea or, there's there's a wide range of sleep disorders that need to be addressed. Now, do you want to be the doc that has to manage that? That's sort of the secondary part of this. It's a beating, isn't it? Anyway, it's a reality. We're going to have to deal with it. As we know, Plaquenil is the miracle drug for lupus. It's been shown to do everything from lower blood sugar levels and lipid levels and have an anticoagulant effect and promotes better pregnancy outcomes. We do know that it has a significant effect on outcomes in lupus patients, including mortality. This is a meta-analysis of 21 studies, 26,000 patients, showing that SLE significantly lowers mortality risk by 54%. It was also capable of lowering mortality risk in lupus patients with renal disease by 57%, and lupus patients with cardiopulmonary disease by 63%. Again, why is your patient with lupus not taking Plaquenil? I don't think you have a good reason. Another interesting study was a cluster analysis of only 112 patients, but they were specifically looking at what kind of patients had erosive arthritis with lupus. And what they did see that arthritis in arthralgia is quite common. Arthritis was seen in 27% arthralgia and 73%. Erosive arthritis in 26%. Cluster analysis showed that erosive disease in lupus was more commonly associated with CNS manifestations, serositis, positive tests for ACPA, CAR-P antibodies, SM, RNP, and DICOF-1. Interesting analysis. Joseph Smolin did that kind of cluster analysis on lupus patients, oh my goodness, over 20 years ago, showing really how different syndromes or different presentations of lupus do cluster. It is true. I think it's worth finding that paper and reviewing it again. A lot of things this week on COVID that are worth noting. The FDA issued an emergency use authorization for the use of anakinra, also known as Kineret, to treat hospitalized COVID patients who are test positive, hospitalized, who have pneumonia and are requiring supplemental oxygen, or they're felt to be at high risk for respiratory failure and other severe pulmonary outcomes with lupus. So an EUA for anakinra now joining tocilizumab. The New York Times reported on an article that's in preprint phase talking about the benefits of Paxlovid. And those individuals, this is a large population-based study, showed that individuals who had Paxlovid within 5 days of having a positive COVID test had a significantly lower risk of having long COVID symptoms. Interesting. And it lowered the risk by 26%. This was an EMR study of COVID patients with risk factors for severe infection. 9,000 received Paxlovid. I guess 45,000 did not. And again, long COVID symptoms were symptoms of COVID lasting beyond 90 days from their infection. Another bit, 12 patients reported with IgA positive vasculitis post-COVID vaccination. These were males and females, age 52. 10 of the 12 had mRNA vaccines. The time from the vaccination to the onset of IgA vasculitis, that would be a Henoch-Schödlein palpable purpura kind of vasculitis, was 11.5 days. 2/3 of them had the vasculitis after the first dose, the other third after the second dose. They all had skin involvement. 7 of the 12 had joint involvement, 4 GI, 2 renal. They were all treated with steroids. Is this real? Is this really a syndrome? Again, a wide array of strange symptoms happening post-COVID. Until proven otherwise, we have to consider it. And then I saw this other abstract in the neurology literature talking about the spike protein of SARS-CoV-2 is capable of activating the NLRP3 inflammasome, and that may be, and of course this was looking at that inflammasome activation as the initial step in the development of chronic neurologic diseases. We know the NLRP3 inflammasome is also involved in inflammation and immune events, and I think this is one of the reasons why we do see activation of our patients if they have pre-existing rheumatic disease and they get infected, why they can get worse, or patients who even after their COVID vaccination either have the onset of a rheumatic disease or worsening of the rheumatic disease. I think it is all driven through the inflammasome, and that the spike protein is being perceived as a pathogen pattern that drives activation. An interesting study, National Swedish Hip and Knee OA Register looked at patients who are actually seen face-to-face versus digitally online, almost 7,000 patients. And it turns out that while they both improved in their outcomes, the digital patients had larger improvement in pain and function. So those of you who are saying, I don't want to do digital, I don't want to do telemedicine, that's kind of crazy, it's not for me, I want to get back to the old way. You know, there's a growing amount of evidence that says that there are many patients who will do just as well, and in this study they did better. Now the question is, was the significant difference in pain and function clinically meaningful? I think we'd have to really look at the data closer to know the answer to that. I think the last big important news of the week was the EULAR recommendations for the management of RA with conventional, biologic, and targeted synthetic DMARDs. As you know, this was presented at EULAR 2022 by Dr. Joseph Smolin, who did a fine job walking us through that. They posted up their 5 overarching principles and 11 recommendations. The highlights of this that are new and something you might want to consider is that they were liberal. Unlike the ACR, who are draconian about allowing you or suggesting that you use steroids, ACR guidelines say, don't do it. Please don't do it. And if you have to, get off it. The EULAR guidelines say, sure, go right ahead. If you're going to initiate or change a DMARD, short-term glucocorticoids should be part of the regimen, and that you should be tapered off and have them discontinue as rapidly as possible. They were, again, much more permissive. I think this is sort of up in lines with what many of us in the United States will actually do. They also said that if patients who have been put on a DMARD or whatnot, or a biologic DMARD or targeted synthetic, after the steroids have been discontinued and the patient has sustained remission, they say that you can reduce or space out DMARD therapy, and that includes conventional, biologic, targeted synthetic, but they do not say that you should stop. So again, reduction is fine, stopping is not. I think that's important. The other thing that they say is that patients who you're treating, and if you don't achieve your treat to target goal, that you should consider adding on a biologic DMARD or a targeted synthetic. They should say you should consider a Jack inhibitor, but only after pertinent risk factors have been taken into account. It sounds fine, but in fact it's quite permissive and liberal compared to the FDA guidelines that say, no, use a TNF inhibitor first, then a Jack inhibitor. And as you know, the EMA came out with guidelines we talked about last week that they're going to get a little draconian too. So anyway, that's the news from this week. The big news is that we're starting ACR coverage today, but really the first day is tomorrow, Saturday. I think this is my prelude to a meeting launch, if you will. I think the good news is we're back at a live meeting. This might be the first big meeting for many of you. I've been back at a number of them, and they've all gone very well. Many people will wear a mask. A lot of people won't wear a mask. That's all well and fine, whatever makes you feel comfortable. The good thing about this meeting is it's going to be very familiar. A lot of the same old things that you're used to seeing. The great debate, curbside consults, the year in review, the plenary sessions, etc. A few things that probably are, I think that you should note. The new thing is that the posters are kind of out. There's some online posters, but instead of having 2,000 posters, they're promoting a small subset of posters, about 235, I think, in what's called Ignite Talks. Ignite Talks are oral poster presentations that are 5 minutes long, given in rapid succession. Thus, in an Ignite Talk session, and there's 7 of them scattered throughout the 3 days, they're 55 minutes, 5 minutes each. That's 11 presentations. Boom, 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 back to back. It's kind of like a cross between a fast-talking auctioneer and a NASCAR race. Geez, I just hope these people speak English. I think I'm going to be numb after attending one of these sessions. The question is, why? I think the ACR is doing this so that we could avoid, thousands of people milling around and having a super-seeder poster event. I think that's the rationale behind this, but this is like speed dating, learning poster style. I don't know. I'm going to try it out. I might go poster on this. We'll see. I'll give you a recap next week. I'm looking forward to a lot of different guidelines being presented this week. No major ones. I think there's a JIA remission guideline, Kawasaki's glucocorticoid-induced osteoporosis, the 5th rendition of the vaccination for rheumatic disease patients, where we're getting to consider all the vaccines, not just the COVID story. Starting today, Friday, the ACR review course. I would suggest that you follow Room Now on Twitter, because all of our faculty, a number of our faculty, are going to the review course and will tweet out basically great pearls that will be delivered by some of our best teachers in rheumatology. It won't be an overwhelming amount of tweets like you're going to have starting tomorrow when the meeting starts. So just the review course, you'll see, I think, really good pearls. You can follow that on Twitter. Saturday is the first day of the meeting. That's tomorrow. I'm looking forward to the first big session there. I mean, opening business meeting, awards. A lot of great friends like Alan Kivitz are going to get Masters Awards. And then starting at 11:30 is the plenary session, which goes on for an hour and a half. That's in Hall A. The Image Competition Awards will start the session. I'm looking forward to presentations from the MIRROR study, use of methotrexate in pegloticase in difficult gout patients. Cancer screening in myositis. I talked about this yesterday in my QD clinic. And a new biologic marker that drives systemic JIA and MAS in kids with systemic JIA. That's all happening in the first half of the day at the plenary session. The first Ignite session begins at 1 to 1:55, sessions 1A, 1B, 1C on 3 different stages. Again, 11 5-minute poster presentations. Again, it's going to be dizzying. Sunday, they're going to have more Ignite sessions in the morning and the afternoon. Maybe the hallmark session of the whole meeting is the session that I'm going to be a part of at 10:30, Advancing Telemedicine and Rheumatology. That's in room 108. I'm on the program with Swami Ventura Pali, Jeff Curtis, Maria Danila, Ben Noel, Rebecca Granger, and we're going to have a 1-hour interesting presentation on telemedicine and maybe why you should be reconsidering that. The great debate is in the morning. Guidelines for vaccination are going to be at the end of the day on Sunday. And then they have a plenary session, Dan Bio registry with biosimilar switching, a new, I think this is a BTK inhibitor, remibrutinib in Sjogren's syndrome. I'll be interested in that. As you know, I've often said nothing works in Sjogren's syndrome, so I wouldn't invest in it. But we'll see. Maybe this will work out. Antifibrotics and systemic sclerosis. Also on Sunday, there's a great lecture, I think in the morning, the Klemperer lecture by Fred Wigley on scleroderma. Fred, as you know from Johns Hopkins, is one of our best speakers, one of our best teachers and researchers in scleroderma. That should be a great session as well. The last day is Monday. Curbside consults, late-breaking abstracts, adult thieves markets. I think it's going to be a great wrap-up to the meeting. My advice to you, if you're on the go, don't have a lot of time to sit and watch hours and hours, is tune in to our topic panels, where our faculty who are focused on one topic like RA or SLE will have a topic panel discussion beginning Sunday night, 7 p.m. Eastern. It's going to be, you can sign up for it. We're sending out invitations for the webinar if you're a rheumatologist. Otherwise, you can go to our website, our Twitter channel, YouTube channel, Facebook, LinkedIn. We're going to live stream at 7 p.m. Eastern, starting Sunday, the lupus topic panel, Monday, the RA topic panel, Tuesday, the psoriatic arthritis topic panel, and then Wednesday, spondyloarthritis. Earlier, 2 hours before that, there's going to be daily recaps by the faculty talking about the highlights of each day, 5 p.m., again, on those same channels. A great way to learn is to tune in Room Now during ACR22. Hope you're going to enjoy it. Lord knows I will. More to come.